Plenty of optimistic feelings for Duke basketball getting set to dive back into ACC play. We're really high on this Duke basketball team.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome on into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thanks so much for being here with us today on Friday, December 20th, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics, and we talk a whole lot about men's basketball and football, and that's going to be the case once again here today as basketball gets set for a game tomorrow, taking on Georgia Tech. We've got a couple of new commits for the football team via the transfer portal. I'm excited to talk about all of these things and so much more with our pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcast. Be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Go ahead and like this video, share it with your friends. Really appreciate all the support that you give us here on Locked On Blue Devils, and excited to be discussing the latest and greatest news for Duke University. Watch our show each and every day on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as we continue to climb towards 3,000 subscribers. Really excited to celebrate that milestone with you guys, so the sooner we're able to do that, the better. That'll be great. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. And I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. Again, joining me on today's show, the aforementioned Josh Cox is here with us today. And as we lay out the show for today, as we get set for a game tomorrow against Georgia Tech and diving back into the ACC portion of Duke's schedule, I want to lay out a lot of optimism for the Duke basketball fan there. Josh, it's feel good to do that this time of year with the Christmas holiday just a few days away from here. But I look at last Friday, a rather worrisome Friday is kind of what we called it for the Blue Devils. So let's be opposite of that. Today, let's celebrate reasons to be optimistic for the Duke basketball team moving forward. I hope you're doing well, man.
Yeah, doing great, JJ. Thanks for having me on again. And yeah, it's getting close to Christmas, man. So that means basketball is basically in midseason form at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so, looking forward to talking about, where we think Duke, is currently and what the next, couple of weeks are going to look like for sure.
Yeah, so as we talked about last week, it was a worrisome Friday, and I want to build this up as an optimistic one for where Duke's at going into the ACC season. Talked a good bit about the struggles at the free throw line, Cooper Flagg not being able to shoot three-point shots, the Malik Brown injury that was in place there, inconsistent play from Caleb Foster as of late. Just kind of highlighting some things that, yeah, you could take account into that, not being as great as you would like so many of those things to be. Today, I want to build it back up. Why this Duke team is really poised to go on a deep run. We could go the ACC angle because that should make you really optimistic with the opponents that Duke's going to have. But I want to hold that for a moment. And again, as we've done all season long, just look at what this Duke team does defensively, night in and night out. I mean, it is very, very difficult to feel productive on the offensive end of the floor if you're going up against Duke.
You're exactly right, number one, JJ. And if you really think about it, I believe it's a two-pronged leadership, approach that Duke has on the defensive end. The first one is Cooper Flagg. I mean, listen, things start with him. And I understand he's 17 years old. I understand all of that. But the fact is this, JJ, he gives ultimate effort on the defensive side of the floor.
No kidding.
He defends all five positions. He blocks shots. He gets his hand in the passing lanes. He can turn defense into offense very quickly, with his ball handling ability and ability to see the floor. So you have that approach. But then you have, as we talked about in the offseason, what Coach Shire and the staff did in the portal. And the two guys that I want to highlight, even though we could even say Mason Gillis as well, but truly it's Sion James and Malik Brown. Just the level of focus that they give Duke on the defensive side of the court. I mean, this team starts on defense, and we could talk about the offense, and maybe we will here in a minute. But the defense makes it extremely difficult on other teams. And oh, by the way, I forgot about the 7'2" Kaman Malawach back there. That he's a little bit different, obviously, and I think Malik Brown's a much more complete defender. But by the way, when Malik Brown's not in the game, there's a guy with a 9-foot whatever wingspan, that's back there,
Nice
guarding
to
the
have.
rim.
Yeah,
not bad. And then you have your guys that I think we all thought were going to just be bad defenders, and that was like Con Knipple, Isaiah Evans, and they're not terrible.
Yeah.
They're not. Now they're not elite by any stretch of the imagination, but the effort that those two guys, Con and Isaiah, are putting in on the defensive end is there. And so that's a recipe for, as we're seeing a top, sometimes depending on the day, right? They're number one in the nation and they fluctuate a little bit, but like a top 5 defense in the country, that's a recipe for it.
And I really agreed with the perspective that Steve Wiseman of the Raleigh News and Observer had on yesterday's show, talking about defensively and a lack of kind of discourse out there about what Tyrese Proctor does for this team in his junior season, being the lead guard defender. We do talk about the versatility of a Flagg and a Malik Brown, Kaman Malawach, Sion James, to your point. But the fact that as a junior, the longest running Blue Devil on this team, Proctor's able to step up night in and night out and take on that challenge while also improving as an offensive basketball player this season. That's just been awesome to watch, man. And it's special for us as Duke fans when so often we fall in love with guys, Josh, and then it's a year and they're off to the NBA and you don't get to watch them play anymore. And here's a guy in Tyrese Proctor that's given us several seasons now.
Well, it's interesting, in his 3rd season at Duke, he has seen it happen to teammates over the last 2 years. If you don't compete on the defensive end, you fall out of the rotation.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. I mean, we've got guys that no longer are in the program that transferred out, and they had the offensive skill set. It wasn't their offense. It was the fact that they couldn't compete properly on the defensive end. So I think Tyrese knows that, and we're seeing the results of that. And I think that's already bled down. I mean, you heard Isaiah, what was it, 2 weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, when he was interviewed about his play, and he was just like, I got to compete on the defensive end, because if I don't play defense, I don't play.
Right.
And he already knows that. So yeah, you're right about Tyrese. It's a great point, is that he may not be our best overall defender. He is absolutely defending the perimeter well, and he's absolutely keeping himself on the court. And then, like you said, that's, producing some great offensive numbers from him as well.
Yeah, and so which sets up the offense for the Duke team, and it's going to start with the best player in college basketball, Cooper Flagg, who does just so much of everything for the Duke team. And yes, you could talk about that 3-point shot, and yes, sometimes the field goal percentage is more inefficient than you would like it to be. But my goodness, what else can he do? I mean, he does everything for this team. It is so clear why he deserves to be the top pick in this year's NBA draft, and it's certainly got to enjoy our time with him this season. It was just this week on our Mailbag Monday to start the week. People are asking us, what does that thought look like that we could get him for another year? It's not happening. That's why we got to enjoy him. But it's plenty of reason to be optimistic for Duke to be so competitive in the ACC this year, because we got the best player in the league.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think Cooper has won. Well, obviously, he won the Duke fans over with all the hype, but still, we've seen hyped freshmen before that have not, won the Duke fans over. And I will say this: if you just take his shooting stats and you say, okay, Cooper Flagg, if you were to tell Duke fans in June, Cooper Flagg by mid-December, late December, is going to be shooting this percentage from 2-point and this percentage from 3-point, are you going to be satisfied with Cooper Flagg? They would have probably said no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he would be underperforming. But he does, like you said,
everything.
He does so much on the floor that you can't be upset with him. Certainly he can improve shooting. He would tell you that. I mean, that's something he's been working on since he was a sophomore in high school. Like, he knows that that's his next step. And he is, like, his shot is not broken by any stretch of the imagination, right? It's not broken. It looks fine. So it's going to start going in. But, I mean, the guy is a competitor. He gets to the rim. When he has to, he can score on people. He's got a great mid-range, look, I feel. When he needs to get a shot off, he can. And I just think he's going to continue to improve. And so you're right. I mean, it starts with Cooper Flagg, but it definitely doesn't end there on the offensive end.
And then Josh, on the defensive end of the floor, with what he's able to do, he just is such a versatile defender and takes the Duke team to the absolute next level. His sharing ability of the basketball is great, because while there have been some highs and lows in regards to 3-point shooting as a team for the Duke basketball team, man, the fact that Cooper's got so many different options to throw the ball to, or these guards when they're trying to get into the offense, like, I think the shooting is definitely going to come around for this Duke team. And look, as long as they keep playing defense at the way that they have, you don't have to be a team that wants to get out there and score 90 plus a game, because there's no way ever that the other teams are going to be able to get that many points themselves.
Yeah, for sure. And I there are analytics to this, but over the last 25 years or whatever the number is of NCAA, college basketball championships, like there are stats about how good those defenses have been. And it's way more tilted towards the teams that were elite on the defensive end than it is the teams that were elite on the offensive end. And so if you have to pick, Duke is going to be elite on one side of the ball, you're going to pick the defensive side of the ball, right? That just is what it is. So, you're exactly right. But don't sleep on the fact that Isaiah Evans and Tyrese Proctor are two of the top, 3 to 5 3-point shooters in the ACC right now. And Isaiah Evans, I believe, is still at 50%. He might have dropped a little bit below that, I'm not sure, but he's right around 50%. When he gets an open look in rhythm, I mean, you feel like every time he shoots, it's going in. And Tyrese has been able to play off the ball and do a lot more catch and shoot threes this year, which is really where he's proving to be his best. And so, I'm not as doom and gloom on the offense. I feel like, once the biggest challenge for me on the offense is not about can we shoot or not. It's about can John and whoever is working on the offensive scheme just get our players in better positions to where they feel comfortable scoring, whether that's Cooper, Con, Isaiah, whoever it is, Tyrese. Yeah. Getting them all, and I know that's tough because it's 5 players that you've got to get in the right scoring, spots on the floor, and that's not an easy thing to do. Not counting the rotation, of bringing guys in and out. So I think I think John will get it together on that end, and I think Duke will improve on the offensive end. And then if they can continue their defensive dominance, there's nothing but good things coming for Duke for sure.
Feel really excited about Duke in the ACC. The rest of the league is down. That certainly helps Duke's cases and chances in the long run to go after a regular season title. And then who knows what that sets you up for beyond that. So they've got Georgia Tech and Atlanta coming up tomorrow. A little bit more on the Yellow Jackets and what has been a difficult place to play for Duke over the years. We'll talk about that and so much more when we return here on this episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? It definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. Whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year, Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Our show is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. That's right, Game Time is the best place for your tickets. It's focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means you bring the people together at live events, the experiences that are much better, and it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets within the app. I love the seat views where you're able to get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, so we're talking about the Duke basketball team getting set for the game coming up against Georgia Tech in Atlanta. The next game due up for the Blue Devils in ACC play. Duke's got a 1-0 record in the league. I've seen a lot of talk. People are bringing up the lighting in McCamish Pavilion is kind of always what stands out to them with these Georgia Tech games. Are you similar there, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, if you and I've never actually been in that arena to watch a game. And so sometimes, like in the NBA, like Madison Square Garden, like when you watch a game, it's kind of odd, the lighting. If you watch the NBA Cup in Las Vegas this past week, the lighting was a little bit weird in the crowd. I don't know if it's actually, lighting issues there, but I will say when you're watching it on TV, it does appear like the lighting is a little weird there for sure.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of different times, and it certainly it tells the test, or it speaks to it on TV as well. And I just thought that was funny this week that's what Duke fans are talking about. The place that the lighting's terrible is kind of where we're going to play basketball this week. So it's a Georgia Tech team that's 5-6. They're coming off a win over UMBC, but they've been pretty bad in their games against major competition. They lost in North Florida also to open up the year, which is never great. And it felt like Damon Stoudemire was putting together a good program. He probably still could be successful in his time there leading Georgia Tech. But this is a team that Duke went 1-1 against last season. They won the game in Cameron. They lost the game at McCamish Pavilion.
Yeah, all you got to do is really look at that top right corner there. The last 5 games for Georgia Tech. I mean, you see, the struggles, the loss, to Northwestern. If I can, the loss to a mediocre, like super mid Tar Heel squad there from Chapel Hill. But no, and even their wins. I mean, look at that UMBC win. I mean, it was a single digit win. I'm sure Stoudemire was not, pleased. I didn't watch that game in full transparency, as I'm sure all of you did, but I wasn't able to watch that Georgia Tech UMBC game. But I'm sure they weren't pleased with that game. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, if you look at the actual accounting stats there on the left-hand side, it's not like there's major differences other than obviously the points against, right? The defense, as we mentioned earlier, that Duke brings to the table that Georgia Tech just doesn't bring to the table. And so if you look at their overall margin, they're only +2, per points per game on the season. And that's obviously not where you want to be. And so, yeah, I mean, if we take these stats and we look at these stats, absolutely Duke ought to win this game, and they ought to win it handily. You and I both know that early season road games, especially as we mentioned on Monday's episode, especially in this kind of new ACC scheduling environment, Duke's already played at Louisville. Here's their second ACC road game in the month of December. It is the weekend before Christmas. I do think that this game and then the Virginia Tech game are two kind of, you know what I mean? It's just those, like, we ought to win these games. We ought to for sure. But, there's a lot going on here. And I'll say this, behind the scenes, JJ, listen, I can promise you that maybe there's family members that might get off work starting this Friday, and they're like, hey, can you get me extra tickets to the game in Atlanta? There's a lot of behind the scenes type stuff around the holidays that these guys have to deal with. And it's like, anyway, all of those things can factor into maybe not coming out razor focused. And so that's obviously the job of the coaching staff to get those guys ready to go.
Yeah, no doubt about it. For our podcast listening audience there, the numbers that Josh was just referring to a second ago, Duke's averaging 78.6 points per game this season. Georgia Tech, 76.5. So just a difference of 2 there, but it's the points against. Duke has given up 58.7 points per game this season, while Georgia Tech has given up 74.5. That is just a 2-point difference in total scoring margin for Georgia Tech compared to a 20-point scoring margin difference for Duke and what they've seen this season. Fairly even in rebounding and assist percentage, shooting all the way across. It's just kind of been defensively, Georgia Tech has been less than desired, and there is a very, very clear talent difference when you look at both of these rosters and the types of players that are currently playing for Duke versus those in Atlanta for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I would actually love to see, maybe at this point in the season over the last X amount of years, like where was Duke at those points per and points against? Because, being plus 20 with the schedule that Duke has played and the 4 elite schools, that they've played, and that's not counting the away game, at Louisville, stuff like that. I mean, to be plus 20 at this point in the season with the schedule that Duke has already played is pretty impressive. And so, like, that's, and once again, these are like surface level numbers. We're not digging into advanced analytics. Those are all out there for people to see. Evan Maya and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that they do. But I mean, just at this surface level here, I mean, just an impressive start, and that defense is legit.
People can see here from ESPN Analytics giving Duke a 91.7% chance to win the game compared to 8.3 for Georgia Tech, a Duke team that should win this game. You're right. There are some weird kind of early season road games that Duke has struggled with in the past. We've already got 2 of those completed this year with a win at Arizona in a true setting and a win at Louisville as well. So all in all, pretty excited about this one. I think Nathan George is one of the most exciting players to watch in the ACC for Georgia Tech. He's got the big afro. He's going to be easy to spot in the game. Lance Terry's been shooting it well from the outside. But Con Knippel was my pick to click, so to speak, earlier this week in the game that Duke had against George Mason, and he let me down a little bit. So maybe now's the time that I could see a couple of more 3-point shots going in for Con.
Yeah, I would love to see one. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here on it, but you got to figure out, like, against athletic ACC players, where Con fits and what is his strength, and how do we get him in the position to be successful. And you and I are not getting paid, enough money to figure that out. And so I am interested. I've not seen it yet. I want to give him a shout out. He's a mutual friend. Jordan Mann was teasing on Twitter, and he was texting me about, like, he thinks he may have found something in some film work about Con. And I don't know if he's released that yet.
He has. Yes.
He has.
Go check it out on YouTube. It's really good.
Go check it out. And I'm gonna watch that and see what he has to say there. But I would love nothing. And listen, if Con starts going off and Isaiah can keep it up and Tyrese can keep it up, all of a sudden it shifts from this offense is struggling, but the defense is elite, to like, oh yeah, this team is elite on both sides, of the floor.
Yeah, I love it. I can't wait. It's going to be a big one coming up tomorrow for Duke basketball, and they take on Georgia Tech. All right, we'll step aside for one more timeout here on the program today. When we return, a couple of new transfers making their way to Manny Diaz and the Duke football program. We'll tell you about them here in a moment. The college football playoffs are back and better than ever. It's that time of year, and it starts tonight with the newly expanded 12-team format. It's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT sports coverage of the college football playoff begins tomorrow, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup over with SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then it's Clemson looking to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, let's talk football. I've got Josh Cox here with us on the show today. We are talking about the college football playoff there. It does start today over on ABC. You'll be able to watch Notre Dame and Indiana. Former Duke quarterback Riley Leonard is going to be playing for an 11-1 Notre Dame team against an 11-1 Indiana team. There's snow on the ground up there in South Bend. Should be a fun one to watch a little bit later tonight, Josh. And crazy just to think that, hey, that was our guy. That was our quarterback for a couple of years.
Yeah, no doubt. I texted Riley earlier today, just encouraging, we're rooting for you type thing. And, I want to see that kid succeed. And, I could tell you this. If you would have gotten us in a corner there in say June, July, and said, hey, listen, the first ever 12-team college football playoff, the first game you're going to watch is Indiana at Notre Dame. None of us would have thought that. And so I do want to give proper shout out to what Kurt Cignetti has done at Indiana.
Indeed.
And I will say this. I've got Notre Dame fans in my life that are close friends of mine that are very, very big Notre Dame fans. And this Indiana team is not being taken lightly. This is not like a super underdog Cinderella thing. This is like, no, they're really good, and we have to come out and play our best. So I know this isn't a podcast about Notre Dame and Indiana, but we just did want to say that since it's tonight.
Yeah, well, it is a podcast about Duke football, and
That's right.
The ultimate goal is the college football playoff. And in today's day and age, a lot of that is built through the transfer portal. We'll see Riley Leonard, transfer portal, playing for Notre Dame a little bit later today. Duke's got their quarterback in Darian Mensah by way of Tulane. And this week, a couple of more guys are coming to Durham to play for the Blue Devils. You've got Josiah Green by way of Dartmouth, the Ivy League pipeline running strong there with Duke football as of late. And then Andrew Anthony, a wide receiver coming over from Oklahoma, set to join the mix. What do you like about these guys, Josh?
Well, first of all, with Josiah Green, he was well sought after. From what I was told, we beat out Georgia Tech, who we all know and respect that defense, Tyler Santucci and the like, and then beat out NC State as well, for him. And so, as you mentioned, Duke has been very successful in the transfer portal, coming from those Ivy League schools, those high snap guys that have just done it. If I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, he was like second team. All Ivy League this year. He was first team. You've seen the steady improvement, and listen, more Kendi Charles, right? More of those transfers that come in, play in the interior defensive line. Coach Infante coaches those guys, and I'm sure this was a big get for him. And so I think he's going to fit right into what Duke has done historically in the transfer portal. Now, not historically, we have the other. Andrew Anthony, right? Duke has not typically gone this direction in the transfer portal. So Andrew Anthony started his career at Michigan before transferring to Oklahoma, had some injury issues this past season. They're in Norman. Is it Norman? Yeah, It is Norman. In Norman. Right when I was saying that, I'm like,
you doubted yourself.
Yeah, sorry. But had some injuries there and didn't really get a lot of snaps and play a ton this year. But if you look at Andrew Anthony's tape, that guy is a freak athlete. Like there's some clips from Oklahoma and from Michigan where he's fast, he's athletic. I mean,
no doubt.
This is what I believe, JJ, and I've not been able to speak a word to this guy. I don't. Not met him yet, nothing like that. But I believe logically you have to think that this guy says, okay, I've not really been able to stay healthy. Honestly, the fan base's opinion of him from Oklahoma was a little bit mixed. And I won't even say, the things, but look up on Twitter. You can see what Oklahoma fans think, whatever. We all know how fans react when people hit the transfer portal. So Duke fans are sometimes the worst on that. But anyway, you can see the mixed reaction about Oklahoma. I believe this is Andrew Anthony saying, this is my final season of eligibility. I'm going to go somewhere where I know I can be a featured wide receiver, and I am going to absolutely use this season as a showcase season. This is going to be the year where everything they thought I could be out of high school, everything Michigan thought I could be in my earlier in my college career, I'm going to put it on display. And it's going to be at an ACC school with a transfer quarterback that they think can really take them to the next level, with an offensive line that's returning its top 6 guys so far, cross your fingers, with a running back room that's staying intact. We haven't even been able to mention that with Star Thomas, looking like he's getting his year of eligibility, all those things. Right. And so I do believe this is a great pickup for Duke and Andrew Anthony. And I look for him to, to step into that wide receiver role and really, and really flourish.
Yeah. A lot of opportunity for an experienced guy to come in on the outside and play for the Duke team, with Pinnacle and Jordan Moore exiting, no longer holding on to eligibility. Now you've got this guy coming in. So Josiah Green, by way of Dartmouth, hometown Indianapolis, Indiana, finds his way there in Durham. And then you've got Andrew Anthony by way of Michigan and Oklahoma. His hometown is Lansing, Michigan, not East Lansing where Michigan State was, although people did think maybe he'll go back home and play for the Spartans after already having played for Michigan. That was a fun storyline to follow with him in the transfer portal this last week. He ultimately ends up choosing Duke. So, and it's fair to say, Josh, we've got 8 days left before the portal again opened December 9th until December 28th. There has not been a head coaching change at Duke. Therefore, there's no kind of reset timeline like you're seeing over at Wake Forest. But it's going to be interesting to see who else could possibly hop in and join the mix.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I need to clarify this. Man, I probably shouldn't even say this, but it's all good. This is the way we roll. I was watching on Pat McAfee's show, the NCAA president of the NCAA or whatever was talking about all the transfer portal stuff, and it might just be for the college football playoff teams.
Yeah,
but there's an extra window for those guys. There's a 5-day window after their final game in the playoff, and I'm assuming that is just for the college football playoff teams.
Yeah.
So I think this Duke window is going to end on the 28th. That was
correct.
Just my mind immediately went to like, okay, Duke's not playing until the 2nd. I wonder, if they extend it. But, we should find out quickly. I will say this. I don't expect there to be a major exodus, JJ, from now until the 28th of Duke players, at least of significant locker room leader type Duke players.
But maybe somebody wants to come to Duke. Maybe someone
exactly.
Still time to welcome people on board.
And then as Coach Diaz showed last season, you have that second portal window.
Right.
And man, he was a master in that second portal window, because last year at this time, he didn't even have a staff put together. You know what I mean? Like, there was no way for him to recruit in the portal, last season at this time. So I do think now, being that news just hit, you may not have seen this yet, JJ. Speaking of the transfer portal, both former Duke quarterbacks have now found their home in the transfer portal. And so Malik Murphy at Oregon State, and then just today, you got Charlotte 49ers landing Grayson Loftus, so he'll be a little bit closer home to Gaffney, South Carolina there. And so both of our guys, former guys from this past year's team, looks like they'll be stepping into starting roles at those respective schools. So.
Exciting for them. Happy that they're going to be able to get that opportunity for sure.
I just wanted to throw those names out there because it lights up the Duke football fan base. Just for one, either good or bad or whatever. I love saying those two names because people are so opinionated about both of them. So
I got it. Look, you're the best. You're on the show all the time. You're the most frequent guest ever in the history of Locked On Blue Devils, Josh, and you always amaze me. And here we were today. It felt like you were trying to advocate for Duke to be in the college football playoff. You were trying to recreate the rules, man, to give us 5 extra days of a transfer portal. And you didn't see the news? Duke's in this year's football playoff.
Yeah.
Thanks to Josh Cox.
I will say this. I hope Duke fans are understanding and can see that Manny Diaz and the staff legitimately see this path to the college football playoff sooner rather than later, the path to an ACC championship game sooner rather than later. And they're not waiting around. They're not waiting around, and they're not like, oh, we're going to be okay for these 2 to 3 seasons and then we'll. No, there's no 2 to 3 seasons and then we'll. It's like, we can do this and let's do it now. So, Duke fans, Duke football fans, by the way, shout out to the Duke football people that were in Cameron the other night. Those are student managers from the football team, by the way. We found that out later. But they were dressed in all football garb right there front and center in the student section at Cameron. So shout out to them. But yeah, Duke football's on the rise and Duke basketball's playing well. So, hey, if you're a complete Duke fan, this is a great time. Time to be a Blue Devil.
Josh, tell me about all your work. How can people support you?
Yeah, for sure. So I want to give a shout out during basketball season, obviously at Duke Report and what Freddie does over there, and I help him a little bit with basketball. But then on the football side, it's at Duke FB Talk podcast. We'll be doing one the week before the bowl game. We're kind of waiting on this portal window to close, and then we'll give our reactions to everything that's happened in the portal and a little bit more detail about what's coming up with the Ole Miss game. DukeFootballTalk.com, and then of course our YouTube channel, which is growing as well as you guys are growing. Subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. It is Friday, so make sure they leave a 5-star Friday, baby. 5-star Friday. Rate and review. Apple, wherever you can do it, it. And I know JJ would appreciate it on Locked On, and we would appreciate it on our stuff as well.
Merry Christmas, man. Happy New Year. Thanks for being here.
You too, man. Merry Christmas. And we will see you. We'll see you in a few days.
Yeah. All right. That's Josh Cox joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. And that brings us to a close here today and for the week here on the program. Best of luck to Duke basketball tomorrow when they get set to take on Georgia Tech. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.